Have you heard the story of elephant Kaavan, the loneliest elephant in the world? For years he lived in silence, trapped behind bars in a world that forgot him. How did he become a symbol for others and inspired a global movement for change?
And according to this evidence, he totally destroyed all the fences.
Welcome to The Saddest Elephant in the World. Chapter 1. The Gift from Sri Lanka. Kaavan was born in 1985 at the Pinnawala Elephant Orphanage in Sri Lanka. The Pinnawala Elephant Orphanage, located in Pinnawala village, is a conservation and captive breeding institute for wild Asian elephants and has the world's largest captive herd today. Around 1985, it served as a holding and care facility for elephants like Kaavan. At just 1 year old, he was gifted to Pakistan's then president Mohammad Zia-ul-Haq by the Sri Lankan government as a diplomatic gesture, but for Kaavan, it marked the beginning of a life in captivity. Kaavan arrived at his new home, the Islamabad Zoo, in 1986. The Islamabad Zoo, originally known as Magazin Zoo, was created as a safe place for local wildlife, including leopards, spotted deer and Indian gazelles. The Magazin Zoo had been built just 7 years earlier, but by then there was already a power struggle at the top and several business mafias took control. But simply, the authorities did not seem to care what happened at the zoo or to its animals. Over time, conditions got worse, with small cages, poor food and neglect. Kaavan's suffering and other animals' deaths highlighted these issues. His lonely story starts right there. For years, Kaavan was Pakistan's only elephant after arriving at the zoo, living a lonely life. Taken from his family, he spent his time alone, without friends or any other elephants, living in an empty cage which consists of, according to a report from Four Paws International, a dry mold with narrow concrete walls, compacted soil, no other natural loose substrate, no trees, logs, bushes, rocks, tires or any other structures. Having nothing to do for over 3 years. Chapter 2. A new friend? In 1990, something changed. From now on, Kaavan was not going to be lonely. A female elephant brought in from Bangladesh seemed to be his new companion. Her name was Saheli, which can be translated to female friend. Together, they still lived in the small barren enclosure, but at least they had each other. Just so you know, elephants are highly social animals and usually live in big family groups in the wild. And although males can temporarily live on their own, they still rely on social interactions for their well-being. Being isolated for long periods, like Kaavan was, goes completely against their natural instincts and needs. But let's continue with the story. Saheli and Kaavan lived together for over 20 years, but in 2012, tragedy struck. Saheli died after a prolonged illness, leaving Kaavan completely alone. The official story is that she died of a heart attack because of the hot weather, but Mohammed bin Navid, a FIZ volunteer, explains she actually died from sepsis, a serious reaction to an infection that can cause organ failure and death if not treated. He says, at some point the unsterilized nails of the mahout's bullock went too far into her skin. She got gangrene and died of a septic shock. Everyone knows this, but won't admit it. Without her, Kaavan fell into deep depression and the harsh realities of his environment only made things worse. The once social elephant was now isolated once again. Kaavan had become increasingly aggressive in the years before Saheli's death, probably because he didn't have the natural environment he needed. And since 2000, he was often kept in chains for long periods, as shown in videos. According to the BBC, the FBI arrived in 2016, around 6 years after Saheli's death. By the time they arrived, they found Kaavan to be an aggressive animal suffering from zoochosis. Zoochosis is a mental condition that affects animals held in captivity, like in zoos. It shows as repetitive, pointless behavior, such as constant head bobbing or pacing. These actions are signs of stress, because animals in captivity can't roam, interact, or live naturally like they would in the wild. An Asian elephant like Kaavan, for example, is not meant to live in such an environment like in the Islamabad Zoo. Zoochosis only happens in captivity and shows that the animal is not well. I made another video about zoochosis and zoos overall, which you might find interesting too. I will link it at the end of this video. Back to the FBI. They found Kaavan showing signs of extreme stress, including low locomotive activity, no explorative or comfort behavior, advanced stereotypical behavior, constant head bobbing, and a complete indifference to humans, except for some begging. His physical condition has also worsened, with signs of infection and old injuries from being chained. Kaavan was clearly suffering, both mentally and physically, and the team could see that his life in captivity was having a devastating effect on him. He was also worryingly overweight, likely caused by the high sugar diet his keepers had been feeding him. Chapter 3. A Glimmer of Hope in the Darkness. People were starting to get more and more curious about the elephant, especially when an American veterinarian named Zamar Khan visited the Islamabad Zoo and was heartbroken by what she saw. Wanting to help, she started a petition on change.org, calling for Kaavan to be freed and sent to a sanctuary. The petition quickly gained support, collecting over 400,000 signatures in 2016. The campaign not only catched the attention of many people in the internet, but also the attention of famous singer Cher, who turned out to become one of Kaavan's biggest supporters. The Oscar-winning actress and singer, who co-founded Free the Wild, a wildlife protection charity, hired a legal team to fight for the animal's freedom. Together with organizations like Paws and local activists, they pushed for change, and in May 2020, the Islamabad High Court ruled that Kaavan must be released. The court also ordered the closure of the Islamabad Zoo because of broken animal welfare laws, but Kaavan's future was still unclear. Some people, as Mohammed bin Navid says, took the selfish route and refused to let Kaavan leave, saying they would take care of him. But as Dr. Usman Khan, wildlife biologist at WWF, pointed out in an interview, Kaavan Zoo wasn't the only one with problems. Pakistan doesn't have uniform standards when it comes to keeping animals, and to improve his well-being, the solution is clear. Kaavan must be removed from the zoo. Chapter 4. The transport of an overweight, aggressive elephant. The organization for Paws that already helped to push for change earlier was invited back to Pakistan, and a new plan about his future life was made. His new home is located over 4,000 kilometers away. So how do you transport an aggressive elephant with a weight problem that far safely? Dr. Amin Kahil, a veterinarian and director at 4Paws International, came up with a plan. The team needed to set up security measures. Dr. Kahil and a colleague had to keep Kaavan in another part of the pen and wait with him for hours. A boring job, according to him. While waiting, Dr. Kahil began singing to Kaavan, which caught the elephant's interest. Over time, Kaavan became more relaxed, eating from Dr. Kahil's hand and even bonding with him during bath time. With music playing in the background, Kaavan eventually trusted Dr. Kahil enough to calmly walk into the custom crate designed for his journey. And finally, on November 30th, 2020, Kaavan's monumental journey began. Transporting a 5.5-ton elephant involved a cargo plane and of course the specially designed crate, making his relocation one of the most ambitious elephant rescues in history. Chapter 5. A New Beginning. Everything worked well and Kaavan safely arrived at his new home in Cambodia, the Cambodian Wildlife Sanctuary. Since Kaavan arrived at the Cambodian Wildlife Sanctuary, his life has improved a lot. His behavior has changed and he no longer shows stereotypical behaviors, like swinging. He's been given a healthy diet, which includes fresh greens, banana trees, and watermelon, which he didn't enjoy at first, but is now accepting. Even though he lived in a smaller enclosure in the beginning, his new home is large, with 30 acres of land, trees, mud pits, water holes, and a swimming pool. This is a big change from the small cage he lived in before. Kaavan has also met 3 female elephants, and overall he's adjusting well and starting a new life with more space and better care. I would love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Now have a peaceful day and see you next time.